In most of my videos you guys have watched, you've probably seen a lot about how great about San Antonio is and how great the suburbs are and how great all these areas are, right? Well, today I'm gonna give you the nitty-gritty truth about why you should not move to San Antonio, Texas. Stay tuned. Howdy guys, this is Michael McCall, your real estate agent here in San Antonio, Texas and all the surrounding areas. Here to bring you another video about the wonderful city and wonderful area that is San Antonio, Texas. Now today, it's not going to be all great. It's going to be the top 15 things that you need to know about before you decide to move to San Antonio. And quite frankly, they're the top 15 reasons why you should not move to San Antonio. We're going to get started on all that here pretty quick. But before we get into that, please don't forget, guys, if you ever need anything whatsoever, if you have any questions about San Antonio or the surrounding areas, reach out, give me a call, shoot me a text, email. My information is right here. You can always message me anytime, day or night, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Before we get started, I want a quick little teaser. You need to stick around all the way to the end. Number 15 is one that is going to affect you guys now, and it's going to affect you if you move to San Antonio for a very, very long time. So stick around to the end for that one. All right, number one. Number one is probably the one question I get quite a bit more than all the others is the heat and humidity. The heat and humidity here is not fun. It's Texas, it's South Texas. For that, it gets pretty toasty, especially during the summer months. So between July and August and in late June, of course, the highs tend to be around the mid 90s. You get the occasional temperature up into 100 degrees or a little bit above, but it rarely ever gets much over 100. Every now and then, in the August, late July timeframe, you have a couple weeks, few weeks here and there where it can be 100 for a few stretch of days. But most of the time, you're going to see mid 90s here. Now, humidity is going to be a booger for you guys. Humidity is not fun, especially if you're coming from an area that you're not used to any humidity at all. It's one of those things that, it has its, downsides, of course, because it's not comfortable to be outside whenever it's crazy humid like it gets some days. But at the same time, the humidity is not quite as bad as people may make it out to be. It's not like you're right on the beach. If you're going down to the beach and you're looking to stay at the beach, you will notice a significant difference between here and there. It is nothing like Houston, for one. It is nothing like Louisiana. So it is nothing like some of the worst places for the humidity that you probably know about. It is rough, but like I said, it's at the same time, I'm used to it. I don't necessarily enjoy it whenever I'm outside working because it just tends to make me sweat constantly. But it's, for me, it's not too bad. And it's one of the very few minor things that I'm definitely willing to deal with to live here in this great city. Number 2. So we get a lot of questions about tornadoes, hurricanes, and hailstorms. Well, the first two, tornadoes and hurricanes, very rarely see ever here. Hurricanes especially, nothing. We're too far from the coast. We don't really get any of the residuals from the hurricanes. By the time they've reached this far inland, whenever they do come this way, it's just a lot of rain and maybe a little bit more windy than it typically is. Tornadoes, every now and then we'll get the occasional tornado watch and tornado warning. Very rarely do they occur to the extremes like they do in the Midwest and especially up near Dallas. It's nothing like that. Every now and then we'll have reports of one having touched down and it maybe hits, a small block here and there, does some damage to roofs and trees, but rarely ever does it cause the catastrophic damage like you see on the news for those big tornadoes up north. Now, the hail, on the other hand, is something that we do have a little more frequently here. Typically in the spring, between April to May timeframe, we get a few of those big heavy storms that come through. They're the ones that will produce occasional tornadoes, as they call them, that touch down. But like I said, nothing like you would expect up north. The hail is something that comes very frequently. It can damage vehicles and your houses with a very small amount. So if it's 1 to 2 inch hail, you could potentially have dings in your cars, could potentially have dents in your roof. But again, these are things that are not, life-threatening issues whenever it comes down to it. So if you're comfortable with having the occasional property damage where, maybe randomly you'll get a new roof out of it, or maybe, periodically you'll just have to be able to put your car in the garage. That's kind of the main things you need to worry about. If you're coming here, if you're looking to buy a house, if you're really worried about the hail, get a house with a garage. Make sure you have it cleared out in the spring so that you can put it in there during those storms that come through, and have good homeowners insurance. And other than that, it's really not too bad, really. Number 3, and another pretty big one, is the property tax rates. Property taxes here in Texas is no stranger to most of you guys. I'm sure they've done your research. Property taxes here are a lot higher than most other places. Reason being is we have no income tax. We have very few taxes whatsoever at the state level. So the property taxes pretty much covers everything from the law enforcement, the EMS, the schools have a very big chunk of the property taxes that go towards funding the schools. And so that's kind of one of the main reasons that they're so high, is because we don't have those other taxes to help fund some of those other things. Another kind of misnomer about it is that you're going to pay $10,000 a year for taxes on a $300,000 house. That's not the case, guys. The way the property taxes work here is that they're different, literally can be by neighborhood. You can go across the street from where you're at and it can have a different property tax rate depending on the different structures that are in place there. Now, in San Antonio, the average is about 2.68. You get areas that are a little bit higher, areas that are a touch lower, but that's just kind of a good average to pay attention to. Now, up towards Bernie or Bulverde, you're actually going to be in the low ones, or in the high ones, in some areas, in the 1.8-ish% range. So at that, just round it up to 2%, at $300,000 house, that's, $6,000 a year in taxes, which, again, sounds like a lot, but considering that the houses here are a tad bit more affordable than, say, California, New York, I would think that it's not that big of a difference really on your average, what you're paying per price, for your price that you're getting for the house. The other thing about the property taxes is that even though, say, you may spend $400,000 on a house, you're not necessarily going to pay taxes on $400,000. It's no guarantee, but the way the property tax appraisal districts work is that they assess their own value. So you could have a house that you spend $400,000 buying and it's worth $400,000 in the marketplace, that the property tax guys don't put it at but $300,000. So you could be paying less taxes than what you buy the house for. It's not related at all to what you buy the house for. So keep that in mind too. Number 4, San Antonio is huge on its tourism industry. After COVID, it's starting to pick back up. I think this summer is going to be pretty much just like it normally has been over the last 10, 15, 20 years. San Antonio is a crazy tourist town. Reason being, you got the Riverwalk, you got the Alamo, you do have the Spurs, you have the Fiesta Texas, you have SeaWorld. So you have quite a few things around here that you can do, and a lot of big resorts too, like the Marriott up there at TPC. And then you also have several other big resorts too that a lot of people come to for golfing and just hanging out and things like that. Also for military is big here in San Antonio, so there's a lot of tourism that comes here as far as visitors for different military banquets that are going on, different graduations from the military for the people that are coming through and going through boot camps here. So you have a lot of those different things that happen. Yearly, San Antonio has over 23 million tourist visitors that come and stay overnight in San Antonio. So you do have a lot of out-of-state traffic, a lot of out-of-town traffic. Downtown tends to be crazy on the busy and especially the holiday weekends. Theme parks tend to get pretty crowded on those busy weekends as well. So keep that in mind. It's, you do have to deal with quite a bit of that. It's not just the locals that are in and around here. It's a big city, so what to expect. Number 5 is the road construction. San Antonio is growing pretty rapidly, and especially the surrounding areas like New Braunfels, Bernie, Bulverde, and then out the far west of San Antonio going out towards Castroville. These areas are growing like crazy. So all the highway infrastructure to try to keep up with this growth struggles with where it currently is. So, and it's because it's been growing for forever. They've always been trying to keep up, and most of the time they really can't. So they've gotten a little bit better about it, I will say. So 281 going up to Bulverde up north from the northeast side of San Antonio that construction's been going on for about a few years now, and it's just about done. And you can pretty much use it as a freeway most of the way through Stone Oak right now, which is a big help compared to what it was before. It was all these U-turns that you had to do and stoplights, and it was just a mess, and traffic through there was awful. But it's so much better even now, even when it's still under construction. I-10 to the northwest, kind of the same thing. It's been under construction for as long as I can remember, honestly, and they're just now finally kind of getting it finished up. They got some hub lanes. They've widened the roads quite a bit, so traffic going through there from Bernie down to San Antonio is not too bad. They're getting ready to start a huge expansion on Loop 1604 that's going to make it 10 lanes wide, so that's going to help a tremendous amount because that area is always tough whenever it comes to traffic. And then 35 going up to New Braunfels is always a madhouse, so they're always doing some kind of construction going out that direction. it's just the nature of living in a growing city. You know, it's one of the things that I personally really dislike about the town, but at the same time, you know, there's nothing that I'm going to say on this list, including this, that is going to be enough for me to ever move out of here. So keep that in mind. It's something you just got to deal with, especially whenever you're dealing with your commutes. Number 6 is the public transportation. Now, before I get into this, guys, if you're getting anything out of this video at all, I would love to hear your comments, hear if you have any other negatives about San Antonio that you know about. So if you wouldn't mind commenting below, hit that little like button. And again, if you're not subscribed already to this channel, hit subscribe and you'll get a lot more videos like this in the future. Now, number 6 is about public transportation. Public transportation in San Antonio is very, very minimal. The Via Bus is the main public transportation company that has their buses running throughout the town. Really, if you're outside of the main central hub of downtown and the inner city, you're not going to have a whole lot of public transportation. Pretty much everybody that lives outside of that main hub is going to need a car. You can always Uber. There's plenty of those ride sharing availability options there. If you're not downtown or really in the middle of the city or closer to it, there's going to be very little bus options for you guys. Now, it is pretty affordable because of that. So, and they are expanding quite a bit. So in the near future, I do expect it to get a lot better. There is a big Via Bus station that was just built a couple years back up in Stone Oak, and that connects directly to the new 281 freeway that goes straight into town. So it's going to get a lot better, and at least make it to where you guys don't have to really travel all the way through town as much as you don't want to. You can drive to these different Via Bus stations, take the bus from there instead of having to drive, you know, all the way across town in your own vehicle. So it'll get better in the future. For right now, it's just something you got to deal with. Number 7 is you do got a lot of critters here in Texas. Everybody knows it. Texas is known for its bugs and snakes and hogs and deer everywhere and all kinds of stuff like that. Really, if you're in town, you have to worry about that a lot less than if you're, say, north of town or south of town. If you're outside of city limits, kind of out into the more undeveloped regions, you have to deal with that stuff a lot more because all development tends to push all those critters out. Now, at the same time, there's still stuff that you will find in town. Snakes, very minimal in town. Every now and then I have heard of coral snakes popping up. Coral snakes are really short little black, red, and yellow snakes that are very easy to see for the most part, but they're very tiny. They are poisonous, so you got to be careful of them. They're so small and they're so non-aggressive that they typically don't ever cause issues. Copperheads are the other ones. Everybody always asks about rattlesnakes. Rattlesnakes are very rarely you will find them in town. Occasionally you will see them, but very rarely do you find them. Most things you have to worry about is the bugs. Spiders, scorpions are fairly common. Scorpions more so on the north side up towards more of the hills, the rocky areas is where you have to worry about those. Spiders, mosquitoes, those types of things, they're everywhere. You just got to deal with it. Wear bug spray, get pest control, and you really shouldn't have any issues. If you keep regular pest control in your house, I personally live a little bit further north of town in the hill country area where there is more bugs than you could possibly ever want to deal with. And I get regular pest control every few months. It takes care of it. I've had one scorpion in my house at the very beginning whenever we moved into this house, and that was before we got any pest control done. Ever since then, I haven't seen a single one, and I've seen maybe a couple spiders here and there. It's kind of overblown, out of proportion, but it's just something you got to consider prepare for. That's all it is. Number 8 is the music scene. So San Antonio has very, very little as far as music scene goes. Whenever it comes to rap and hip hop, that's pretty much non-existent. Now, we'll say it has next to nothing. San Antonio is very well known for its Tejano music, so there's quite a bit of that going around. You also have a lot of country music because this is Texas. Whenever it comes down to the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo, or some of the areas like Cowboys Dance Hall and you know, outside of town like Green Hall, up in New Braunfels, you get a lot of big country music artists that come and play at those places. Big, you know, national artists, and as well as some of the bigger Texas country artists. You do get some of the big name pop artists that come and they'll play at like the Alamo Dome or the AT&T Center and do the big sellout shows. My wife and I went to Michael Bublé a few years back, and so that was a lot of fun. So you do get the big artists that come here every now and then, but as far as like your regular everyday type stuff downtown, very minimal. King William District, Southtown, Blue Star Arts Complex, those areas that have a lot of the bars that you can go to have a lot of local people that come in and play, but it's minimal compared to some of the other bigger cities that you would find. Number 9 is that the median household income for a family here in San Antonio is lower than the national average. Here in San Antonio, it's roughly $46,000 a year, whereas the national average is about $53,000 a year. Now take that into account that the cost of living here in San Antonio is a lot lower than the national average. We're 10.3% lower than the national average. So more affordable, it kind of correlates with the lower wages. You know, got to think about that whenever you're looking here. And different industries are a little bit better than others. So as you're finding your jobs here, just keep that in mind, that even though you're not going to pay income tax, you may have a little bit lower wages. So figure out what that offset is with where you're paying your income tax now and what it would be whenever you moved here, depending on what your offer is from your employer whenever you're going to move down here. Just make sure you keep that in mind whenever you are looking at, relocating here. Number 10 is the allergens. San Antonio is known for its cedar fever. San Antonio is ranked as the number 12 worst city in America for the fall allergen season and number 16 for the spring allergen season. Cedar is probably the one that takes the most victims every year. My dad personally has to get a shot pretty regularly to combat his cedar allergies. Even though he's gotten used to it over the years, it's gotten a little bit better. The other ones that are really bad, ragweed is pretty bad. Oak pollen also gets pretty rough. And then mold actually does flare up quite frequently too. So cedar, like I said, is the worst. So it's one of those things where if you come during one of those seasons like fall or spring, stay here for a few days, see how your body reacts to that stuff if you're worried about it, and then decide on moving here. That'll kind of help you get a pretty good gauge on how you will handle all the allergens around here. Number 11 is the sports teams. We have one big-time professional sports team here, and that's the San Antonio Spurs. And unfortunately, since old Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker retired, we have had very little luck when it comes to winning with the Spurs. We were so used to it for so many years, and now we just have to face the music and deal with mediocrity for a little while. There are no other professional sports teams. As far as big name teams, there's no MLB team, there's no NFL team, there's no NHL team. We actually just lost our minor league hockey team, the Rampage. We do have a minor league baseball team in the San Antonio Missions that is quite fun to go to. And we still have a bunch of college teams that you can go watch. UTSA Roadrunners are a Division I football team. They have a baseball and basketball teams as well that you can go watch. So you do get quite a bit of that. And you also have our local soccer teams too. So they're pretty popular around here. They're a lot of fun to go watch also. Number 12 is that there is minimal city life. And I say that with kind of a hesitation a little bit, because downtown and Pearl District and Southtown and King William District and Blue Star Arts Complex, all those areas are really, really fun to go to, and they have a lot to offer. But compared to like the big cities, there is very low walkability whenever it comes to those. You really have to be in an apartment downtown, or you have to pay a premium for a condo or townhome that's right there in the middle of town or in the Pearl District. Those areas are getting a little bit more expensive, and you really have to kind of fork up some change to be close, to be within a walkable distance to things. There's very low, like I've mentioned before, public transportation, so you pretty much have to have a car. If you live anywhere outside of the inner city, you have to have a car to get into the city to really enjoy the benefits of the San Antonio downtown city life. Number 13, and I say this with a big heap of passion, is the San Antonio housing market right now, as we stand in 2021, is ridiculous. I would hate to be buying a house right now. Now, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't. So the housing market right now has increased so drastically over the last year due to, mostly in part, the interest rates, also the fact that a lot of people being stuck in their house for a while during COVID have realized that they really don't like the house that they're at, don't like the location that they're at. And so a lot of people have been able to go remote and work fully remote, so they're able to move wherever they want to move to. So a lot of people are coming to San Antonio because of the affordability, because of everything that it has to offer. With that, the prices have increased over 10% in the last year. Within the last 6 months, in this calendar year of 2021, I'm recording this in June 2021, the average sales price for a house in San Antonio is $320,000. This time last year and all of the calendar year of 2020, it was $290,000. So you can see in just half a year, really, it's increased over 10%. The biggest problem that I'm seeing is that you're having a lot of people moving here that have a decent amount of cash, that are getting conventional loans 20% down, and it's really making it difficult on first-time home buyers. Now, there are plenty of ways that I've dealt with that. I've had several first-time home buyers recently that are buying houses right now, so it's not to say that you can't buy it. It's just to say that get ready for the grind, pair up with me, reach out to me, and we can talk about a plan to get things going with it and figure out what you got to do to get in your house, especially if this is your first house and you have minimal cash to put down. A lot of houses are going for over asking. A lot of houses are being sold the day that they're going on the market. I had one house that was a $200,000 listing. They got 37 offers in the first weekend. It is not quite to California levels where everything is going for 100,000 over. It's not even close to Austin levels where they're going 100,000 plus over on some of these houses. We're seeing things go anywhere between 15 and 20,000 over, maybe a little bit less, depending on the price range. You know, it's just kind of something you got to expect. You know, if you're looking at the lower price range, a lot of those houses, if you can, you know, be willing to put in some sweat equity and, you know, refurbish it a little bit and get one that's not quite as updated, you don't have to go as high over asking price, or you may not even have to go over asking price if it's priced a little bit high already. You know, you can kind of take advantage of some situations and, you know, like I said, talk with me and we'll come up with a pretty good game plan to make sure that you guys have the best opportunity if you are looking to buy a house in San Antonio. But right now, it is tough. It's going to keep going up. There's very, very few times in history of San Antonio, even during the 2008 market crash, where the housing prices in San Antonio have dipped and dropped drastically. So keep that in mind as well. San Antonio is a very resilient market, and hopefully, no crystal ball here, but hopefully it continues to go that way forever. Number 14 is that San Antonio does have a lot of quarries. So quarries are basically big pits in the ground where companies come in and they essentially harvest a lot of the limestone rock and create a lot of this construction aggregate and granite millings, all types of things that are needed for building all these big overpasses, or putting base fill down for big buildings. Also for stone for houses, whenever they're building houses. A lot of that comes from right here in San Antonio. Negative is that if you live close to one, you can occasionally hear the explosions from them mining on that limestone. You don't hear it a whole lot in most areas. Some areas you don't even notice it. Biggest negatives for me is that whenever you're close to those areas, you do have a lot of the big gravel truck 18-wheeler traffic. A lot of that dust, you know, coming off those quarries if you're living downwind of those. But big benefit for those is that it does make prices here for construction a little bit more affordable, and it's all relative. It's very minimal, right? So your stone, if you're getting a limestone exterior for your house, it's going to be a little bit cheaper than say if you were getting stone from out of state. I'm building a house right now, so it's something that I'm dealing with personally. It also makes some of these roads a little bit more affordable because they're able to get all this fill and construction aggregate from close by, and they're not having to pay these huge freight charges to get it shipped from across the country. It also employs quite a few people, thousands of people in fact, and brings a big part of the economy of San Antonio too. And last but not least, number 15, the one that I told you needed to stick around to hear about because it will affect you now and in years to the future, is that San Antonio is exploding. It is having a ton of development going on. Out to the far west side of San Antonio, there is a huge amount of new construction houses going in. Out to the northeast, headed towards New Braunfels, same thing. Southeast, headed out towards Seguin, same thing as well down there. There's a lot of new construction housing developments going in, and they're going in everywhere in town, out of town, the suburbs. In fact, in 2020, San Antonio saw over 16,000 new homes built just in the calendar year of 2020. And that was with COVID. That was with a pretty big gap there where they kind of stopped building for a while. It's only, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like whenever the final numbers come out for 2021. But San Antonio is quite literally exploding with growth. It's great for us because that growth is going to bring a lot of growth to the economy. It's going to bring a lot of big employers that are going to see the opportunities here and they're going to want to come here. It's going to bring a lot of tourism here too. It's going to expand San Antonio all the way around because of the popularity having just grown so much. Negatives is prices are going to go up, like we're seeing right now with the real estate housing market. Those prices are going to increase. Right now, the big negative is that traffic's going to stink. There's a lot of people growing, especially for us locals. It's going to be tough for us to deal with all these new people and these new houses coming in. And it is making these real estate housing market a lot more challenging to buy in. But in the future, it's just going to mean your prices are going to keep going up in that house. And so when you're ready to sell in a few years and upgrade, you can get a little bit more for that house. Guys, I hope you appreciated that top 15 list of why you should not move to San Antonio, Texas. There's a lot of things to offer with San Antonio. These are just a few minor things that are big negatives. Do not take these completely to heart that this is a complete reason why you shouldn't move here. I'm not saying you should not move here. I'm just saying these are a few reasons why you might not want to move here. there's a lot to offer with San Antonio. I think there are so many more reasons why you should move here versus why you shouldn't move here. So anything you need, guys, again, like I said, I'm here to help you guys with whatever you need. You can text me, call me, email me any time of day or night. I'll get back with you as soon as I possibly can. Information is right here again. Without further ado, guys, I will let you go, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.